my name is Sweetie. Good luck.
I think we can go ahead and get started right away. Under the motion, this House to ban mail order rights, I'd like to welcome the Prime Minister to start the meeting.
Then my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So on government side, we would ban mail order rights. We advocate for women's rights and we prevent exploitation. So what is the kind of men that will usually be ordering these mail order rights? So we think that they will usually be like really rich, economically successful. They will be probably really busy because they don't have time for like normal dating like people. And they probably have personality flaws like behavior issues, like anger issues, or like being really dominant and like believe in the patriarchy. So, and they would also be like old middle-aged men because they're not able to get like a relationship like the normal person. So let's talk about the women who would agree or be like needing this mail order ride service. So they would probably be in like poor economic situations, like for example, second or third world countries as mentioned in like the motion, in a place where women are being not that treated well either, where like feminism is really prevalent. They don't have a good education. They're probably in their household, like cleaning and like helping take care of kids or things like that. And they need to rely on others and are often young, attractive women who are going to be applying for this like program. So what is our model? We are going to be shutting down all of these mail order right agencies. And we're going to instead change these agencies into migrant agencies to help these girls get jobs in more developed countries. Like for example, it's already happening in Taiwan and like the Philippines. So an example could be like maybe they could come to Taiwan to work as a nanny for like a household and to help take care of their kids instead of selling their body, selling their autonomy. So we think that by having these agencies, it provides these women a better chance for a better life without having to exploit themselves and like dedicate themselves to these kind of middle-aged men who have personality flaws that will likely abuse them. So our first argument is a principal argument about objectifying and commodifying women. This whole industry is basically objectifying women. It's using women as an object, as a trading tool to gain economic benefits. And this is just principally wrong because this is basically the same thing as slavery, but for like specifically for women. Yes.
Who exactly is gaining this economic benefit in this transaction?
It will be the agency and like because they're like kind of like selling the women and like the person who is in between, like managing all the women and like all the men, they will probably gain a lot of money like during the process. Okay, and this is just principally wrong because it is basically selling your body autonomy and your own human rights for money. And later I will explain especially how this is detrimental because of the condition these women are in. So this is like buying strippers, like legalizing prostitution. And even if you say the woman has given consent, we say no because it is exploiting vulnerable women. Women who are already stuck in this like poor poverty trap where their family is just not able to support an education, not able to support their life, in which they have nothing to sell, like they have no talents, they're not smart, they don't even have an education that they've received, they have no other thing to sell other than their bodies and their own human rights. So first, it is taking advantage of women in already struggling positions, and it is using their weakness as a weapon to hurt them. And second, the woman could likely have been pressured by their family or friends to join this like agency. Because if you think of it, it is actually quite possible. You think that your family would like, for all of us, I'm sure that our parents love us and would probably want the best for us. But imagine if you are a really poor person living in a third world country where you have to think of your next meal every single day. Your parents probably gave birth to you for you to be able to earn money for the household, right? And when they see this as an opportunity to sell out their pretty attractive young daughter to a rich billionaire in order to also get some money, to get money, they will always sell off their daughters. So this is morally wrong to be objectifying women or anyone or any human because as humans, we are breathing beings with rights and emotions and needs and feelings. And especially in these conditions, it is so detrimental to feminism in these third world countries because in these really like underdeveloped countries, feminism is already not prevalent. And when you introduce a system of like buying and selling women, it is just going to worsen the situation even more and push back the rise of feminism. Our second argument, no, is power imbalance. So from the starting point already, there is already an imbalance because the man or like the customer who is choosing the woman is already the person who, as seen as, is probably like the one in power, right? Because they're already choosing the person that they want to marry. And per the motion, the choice is already an imbalance of power already. So then let's walk through the whole process. Let's imagine that we're one of the women in the list that chosen from the men. So let's say like, a rich guy chooses us. And then I sign a contract, and it's now going to get shipped to another country as like a mail order bride, right? And I have no family. I don't have any friends. I don't have anyone on my side. And especially your family and friends will not be able to go with you because they're for the plane tickets, right? You only have the agency, and the agency is not likely going to be helping you because they're like the incentive of a company is just to profit, and with no one to help you when anything goes wrong. This is where the power imbalance is the most severe because the man basically now has infinite power over you. They have infinite dominance over you. He can do anything he wants you without you having any help or having any way to climb out of this trap. Why? Because first, the woman does not have any family or friends, as I have mentioned before. And even if she goes to the police or she goes to like the CIA to have people help her, she is not going to get help. Why? Because like obviously the man is rich, he has lobbying power. He's going to just prevent the situation already. And not only is there a financial imbalance, the woman will probably also have to struggle with language and cultural barriers, and people will probably not want to associate themselves with like a rich, powerful person, so people would not try to help her. And even if the man was just a middle class person, he already holds so much power over her. And this is just magnified even more when the men we are talking about in this debate is like wealthy. They're like probably like really powerful people in their countries or in their cities. They have lobbying power, as I have mentioned before. So what is the impact? We prevent exploitation of women. We protect women's rights. We give them job opportunities to go to other places and actually start a future instead of selling their bodies, because it is the only thing that they have left now. Thank you.
My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. Proposition seems to have mistaken our middle order marriage as some sort of human trafficking organization which sells people to rich people. That's not what we're pushing here. We're proud to propose. So, two clarifications first. One, they said that they're going to replace the existing mail order agencies with migrant order agencies. But two responses to that. First, because there's already enough supply of these migrant workers. That means one, these people would receive lower salaries, and two, they might not even find a job under that form. And two, the second response is that this is not necessarily selling their own body. It's not necessarily a violation of their own rights. And I'll explain that in our model. Now, before our model, there's two pieces of framing here. Now, what do the male and the woman look like in mail order bride? Right, the woman is actually economically struggling, right, because they are trying to seek for a better life, and they are most likely consented to this offer. They have a choice and is voluntarily involved in this. Why is this? Because the emotion dictates, the impulse side dictates that this might match based on personal preferences, which means the person is actively engaged in this. And the man is the kind of person who maybe, for example, prefers certain ethnicity for people. Maybe they use this agency as a sort of Tinder where you can find people from across the globe and see other people. Or maybe they just can't find a suitable partner in their own countries, maybe because of different values and stuff. So onto our model, which is the most crucial part of this debate. One, will it make it illegal to conduct mail order brides privately? And because if it's done privately, it's simply human trafficking, and we don't want to allow that, right? And we're going to make sure that it is regulated by the government. And maybe it could be done by other agencies, but then the agencies themselves would still be under direct regulations of the government. And why is that justified? Because marriage itself is already regulated by government. We say the implication of marriage, that is mail order bride, should still also be regulated by government, right? And the attendants are inspected by the governments by one, they're well informed, and two, that they're voluntary. And this is not whether we will ask the individuals themselves, not just their family, not just people around them. We ask them themselves. And also, we require them, I'll take it later, we require them to talk for some time to make sure that they're well acquainted, to make sure that they understand each other, and make sure that they won't have, they are making an informed choice of marrying to this person. And also, men and women can, and about the transaction, the male and the female in this thing can negotiate a transaction that what would happen if they marry. For example, a woman might demand a monthly salary for this marriage, or a woman might demand nothing at all, or a woman might demand that her whole family gets moved to the male's country together, right? These terms could be negotiated between the male and female because we want to ensure that the woman has the freedom of choice in these situations. And also, this whole process will be supervised by the government. And after the whole deal is over, the organization will get a commission from the orderer, which is most likely the men. And then that gives an incentive to do it right, but then discourage them to abuse it because there will be punishment by the government. And also they are obligated to continue monitoring the couple. Yes.
These men who are likely to do these order brides are likely to be more like fish, and they have lots of power, and they can quite literally just lobby the government, decide domestic abuse.
Okay, I'll stop you there. If they are indeed so rich and so powerful, why not just ask someone privately to go to that country and just kidnap a woman back, right? Because these people are not powerful enough to make these rule violations without getting caught. We will have to make sure that they are certainly regulated, and because we're able to regulate them, we can make sure the safety of these women. So onto the two arguments of this case. One is that one argument, we can allow a lot of gains for the bride, right? Why is that? Because we have to understand that these women likely suffer from a lot of different things in their own countries. One, they might have a lower economic situation, right? For example, they might not be able to afford healthcare, not be able to afford education, or even just some basic needs in their country, right? And two, they might suffer from oppression by society, where we can most likely see that in, say, say in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia, where women's rights is still in stagnation, where there's still a lack of women's rights promised in these places, right? For example, they might have forced marriage in these countries, or women may have lower rights or be seen as secondary citizens compared to men, right? And these might make them vulnerable to, say, forced marriage in their own country, right? And the third thing is that they are vulnerable to the instability of the regime. For example, because we are talking about the developing nations here, there might be, for example, civil wars going on, famines going on, a lot of different instabilities within the society themselves, right? Which means they are even less capable of defending themselves, or even less capable of making sure their own safety or ensuring their next meal. And these are very real situations that these women would be encountering. And we said that mail ordered bride were able to fix this. Why? To provide a pathway for them to reach a developing nation and ensure that they can have a good safety and have their well-being taken care of. So what is the impact of this? One, the more superficial impact is that it can save some women from dangerous coerced situations. Why is that? Because intuitively speaking, these men who are inspected by the government, who are well-informed, who are voluntary, would be able to be willing to take shelter and protect these women from all sorts of danger. And two, the bigger impact is that because these suppressed people now have another out from these coercive society, that means in the long run, less people fall victim to these coercive ideas. So, for example, if we allow mail order bride to happen, this means 30 years, 40 years from now, there will be more people in Saudi Arabia opting for male bride order instead of the coercive marriage that is occurring within Saudi Arabia. What does that mean? That means less people will be subjected to these ideas, and therefore we can change the attitude and change the conservative ideas of that country. Very proud to oppose.
Deputy Prime Minister, here, there.
30 seconds, please. Yeah, so my speech in 3, 2, 1. First of all, some clarifications. First of all, agencies are bad actors. I think first of all, they will promote this type of work and just like because it is quite profitable to them, and also they just generally have incentives. And this seems, and I think it just like on a surface level, I think it just seems like a very good offer towards women. Second is that I still think they're just I just still think that many of these women who opt into this are pressured by their families or like or to this type of work. Okay, so also I think men are just bad actors. First of all, men are generally just more powerful, and also I think. And claim that there will be just like government intervention or like just government regulation, but I think the regulation is very likely to be surface level because one, the government has zero incentive to actually care about these women. Second, I think it's just that these women aren't a part of their part of the nation, so they just don't really care about them, right? I think we can already see this in like how governments are generally unwilling to just are just more opposed to just like migrant workers and stuff. But just to practice, migrant workers still have better rights and they still have better lives because of like lobbying from the masses, which I don't think happens on their side with male order rights because this is less known work and people just care about this less. Okay. Thirdly, I think it's just like women have a lack of access to like hotlines and such because they are uneducated and they just don't really know what's happening in these West. So I think and also with this as bad actors, I think they will just try and prevent women from accessing these to just any extent that they can, so that they can just do whatever they want. Okay, so a few more responses. One, they tell us that there's like a low demand for migrant worker jobs. I think this is untrue. Why? I think that there's a high demand of like workers or just like blue collar workers in the form of migrant workers in many of the developed countries because many people in these developed countries are already highly educated and are unwilling to work as these blue collar workers. Yes.
Migrant agency exists on both sides. The reason why women don't go to migrant agency often on both sides because it's dangerous. They have no connections and no money and no education.
I think that's untrue. Why? I think there's already a very developed migrant worker community in many developed countries in which because there are already a lot of that. Also I think I just don't think they can opt into migrant worker work because one, it's an actual job, which and I think the second is that it seems more preferable to be like a bride. On a surface level, I think much of the propaganda that these agencies are going to spread is going to just paint it as like a really, really good thing, even though it's probably not. So I think this is why there's a higher incentive of these women to opt into male order brides rather than migrant workers. But okay, I will tell you on a deeper level that migrant workers is a better alternative. Why? Two reasons. One, you have more autonomy, right? If you go, I think it's just in general, just intuitively, you have more autonomy because as a new order, you see a man who is likely to be rather controlling because there is still, as we said, a power difference. Like a power difference, right? And I think this has remained unresponded to because I think just inherently, even in temporary relationships, it doesn't even have to play migrant workers. Just lower relationships. I think the man is still generally more dominant to the women. So I think that is just empirically true. Is that we actually second is that we can actually they can actually be self-sufficient. If they have a stable job in a foreign country, I think this is much better for them because now they're self-sufficient and they don't depend on a man to actually earn money and they themselves are the breadwinners for their family and they can send all this money back. I think this is already happening in the status quo and it's pretty good, right? Thirdly, I think it's just migrant workers have a better culture. They already have an established community and people who already care about them. Look, in Taiwan, there are lots of like protests on the streets for these migrant workers and to advocate for these migrant workers so that and I think it's just because migrant workers is already a very, very important part of the developed country's economy. So I think, and just like the manufacturing sector, so I think the government also has the extra incentive, to actually care about these migrant workers. On my substantive on fulfillment. This is the principle on fulfillment for women. What I think, what is the problem? I think even if these relationships are abusive, this is just like the biggest assumption on their side, right? Even if the relationship isn't abusive, it is so transactional in nature. I don't think this works Tinder. I don't think women have a say in who they would date or want to date. I think it's generally the men who pay the women, and it's not like Tinder. I don't think it works like, oh, I swipe left, I swipe right. On the women's side, I think this is how this is on the men's perspective. Oh, I like this women, I'll swipe right, left. I don't know how Tinder works, okay? But I think this is just going to be a really transactional relationship, and it's not a true relationship. Why? This a transactional relationship in which the man orders the women, so the women doesn't really actually like the man. This means that they don't actually get love. This isn't like actual love, right? Which yeah. So I think that this just makes a more unfulfilling life in which they don't actually experience love. Why is love so important? Because I think this is the basis of like just the human experience in general, right? It's something that we ought to experience and we want to experience, and if it is something that we don't experience, then I think it is like are forced to go through a fake relationship. I think that is just a lot very, very detrimental. Why is yeah. Also, how do we solve this? I think in the counterfactual, we allow women to just have like the choice of who they want to date because they aren't bound, because they aren't sold to that. And I think as a migrant worker, you can still like find like this like, really hot man in the migrant worker community. I don't know, or just like go back to your country and like marry, right? So I think all of these just like contribute to just a more fulfilling life in which you can actually have autonomy in who you date and who you are in a relationship with. Also, another additional harm on their side, and I think since the women just don't like these, aren't like truly in love with this man, I think it is also pretty likely that they'll like cheat on them one way or another. I think that also going to be that urge. That's because because she just doesn't find this like fulfilling, and they just want and they just want like love. Right? So I think the incentive for women to like cheat on this man is very, very high. But although I think this is super, super dangerous for these women, and it's because these women on these men, and this and it's like relationship is the only thing that is keeping them here, and it's the only thing that's giving them money. And even if they get money, I still don't think that this is very bad transactional relationship.
Thank you for the final speech. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Deputy Leader.
Speech will start in 3, 2, 1. You take away an alternative pathway that provides legal and safe pathways for women to leave a dangerous, abusive country. You are practically sentencing death to these young women that are forced into sex work industry. So about you, oppose. Before I begin with my 3-piece argument, I would like to begin with both. I think from the framing from the second first speaker, that's not all wrong. They framed in a way that it's going to be really all male dominance against the woman. It's going to be where men have every single ounce of control. They frame it as men will be all what's that called? Anger issues, all going to be mentally ill that choose to opt into this kind of system. I say that is wrong. First off, there is a difference between illegal trafficking industry and mail ordering rights. Like our first speaker has stated multiple times, mail ordering rights is 1, private hosted and legal, 2, probably hosted by first world country, and the other for America hosted under the surveys of American government, first country hosts a private system that for the mail order rights. Right? No, right? So under these three mechanisms, where they cannot possibly prove to be not true, I think it's safe to say there will be one background checks for every single man that tries to opt inside. It's not like they will live inside a full of crime background of crime went into these kind of systems, right? And two, there will be multiple checks and agencies to ensure the safety of these women. This is what we emphasize again in the POI. There's a difference between trafficking work and our male rights, and that's why because we provide a safer alternative to women who are sometimes forced into these kind of illegal trafficking industries. Yes.
If men don't have issues, then why can't they just get a woman? And then why do they opt into this instead of like getting a girlfriend on Tinder?
First off, I think they're right to some extent of maybe the man is too ugly to get some woman, and that is one true, right? But I often think that it can also be more of a command partner, right? Because for example, the men need someone to take care of the home. You might say that, oh, that's against women's body autonomy, and that's against the saying of feminism, that women can't be a male or something. But we say that they also mentioned about something love is the most important thing in the world. Is love or the woman's job the most important thing? When women are being abused in their original country, when women are subjugated to multiple illegal trafficking work, illegal sex work in the original country. I think it's time of the debate, it's time to abandon these old ideologies that love and what they do in the other countries, because we provide a safer pathway to the developed country, to a safer country, and that ensures more opportunity in the future. No, thank you. And also, we can assume that migrant agencies are only existent on their side. Migrant agencies and illegal sex work or trafficking work are existent on both sides. They frame it as it's one of the other. Without male working rights, with male working rights, there will not be agencies. There will not be migrant agencies. Without migrant agencies, there will be no male working rights systems. I think that's true. I think migration agencies can be existent on both sides. But the reason why we want to emphasize again that migration agencies do not often work well in these kind of environments, in these kind of traditional developing countries, is because one, most young girls in these kind of traditional countries are often coerced to pursue more of a illegal, dangerous industry by the traditional ideology in that country, right? And two, migrant agencies often focus on more older women, more experienced women in certain countries. And that is why I say migrant agency cannot be a possible good alternative compared to ours, or provide a safer alternative to other countries with young women. Because as you can see, Taiwan, a lot of the Filipino or other migration agencies that are often older, right? I don't see young developing country women going to Taiwan and say they came from migration agency, right? No. So with these two premises established, I think it's safe to say that migration agency cannot be a good alternative to us, because I want to emphasize again that it is legal and safe. We provide a better pathway to the developed countries. Next, I would like to begin with my arguments. The banning of the mail order price system removes negotiation and protection within the system. So first off, we established from our first speaker, the system is health protected. And banning mail order removes the already few accesses to protection that women currently have, increasing their vulnerability. So let's just restate the mechanism again. Since it's legal, agencies are one, licensed, two, background checks, and three, interviews are all possible and existent are under our side and not under their side. We prevent exploitative behavior more efficiently in a black market environment. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is when in India, for example, without the mail order price system in India, women are often forced to go into shady sex work or shady traffic systems or shady prostitution systems that they often have no choice, because that is their culture and that is how their parents treat them, and that is often their only option to survive in this kind of world, right? No. Women choose this over, and because we prevent exploitative behavior more effectively than this kind of industries, women choose this over dangerous sector industries because we again provide an alternative choice. On their side, I think what they're arguing for is purely the status quo, because they cannot say that migration industry suddenly magically pops on the and it never existed before. They're arguing for status quo while we're arguing for change and women to leave this dangerous country, right? And if they get stripped away from this mail pricing platform to escape poverty, to exploit new opportunities in other countries, they often turn towards more dangerous industries because one, they're desperate for money, and two, the traditional culture mindset that exists within that society, right? So what do they actually turn for? They usually turn for young women in these kind of developing countries often are human trafficked, where they have no choice, or two, they volunteer going to illegal prostitution, which is not actually volunteering, more because of they're forced to, right? Because for example, in India, we can see young women as young as 10 years old trying to coerce by the parents to go into this kind of mail order bride agency, right? At least maybe not 10 years, but at least on our side, we solve a problem for this kind of young women as 20 years old and 27 years old because we provide safer option to a developed country, right? And why? Because why do these women will automatically opt into these kind of more dangerous shady industries? Because poor countries are often more traditional, no job opportunities, and ideologies that women can only survive with the black market works. So there will be a small percentage of women actually become successful in these developing countries, if not none. It's pretty clear that there are arguments at school where we're arguing for a new pathway for women to go into safer developed countries to exploit new and better chances. So proud to host.
Thank you so much. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome back with here.
Start. 3, 2. So opposition comes up here and tells you that we're the ones just arguing for the status quo. No, we're the only ones who are actually actively trying to find a way to change the way it is now. We're the only ones who are actually trying to fight to actually advance more feminist movements and change the lives of these women and make sure they're able to get better lives, get better jobs, be perceived better in their country. We're able to actually change like the way the society is in these developing countries that are usually more oppressive to women, and we're able to help these women like economically and whatever. So let me tell you exactly how we're gonna be defending the liberal and why they're the ones defending the SQ that are not. And this is why we need to change. Okay, so first, what I'm gonna do in this stage is I'm just going to go into some rebuttal. I'm gonna take down their impacts and why exactly like none of their arguments work, and then I'm just going to why we win and just like weighing it using some metrics to show you exactly how our impacts are way more beneficial and why they actually work in the long term. All right, so then moving on, moving into like rebuttals then. Okay, so essentially they just give you a few reasons why we should keep mail order rights. First reason is because it's legal. They just think there's going to be regulation. It's going to be seen by the government, overseen by the government. They're going to make sure that women are being informed. It's a legal system that somehow is working. Why is it still bad? It's because they tell you that these companies are profit driven, right? So the way they're going to be doing this, they literally concede in the first speaker that this whole entire industry is just going to be proliferated the entire time. What happens when this industry is proliferated, right? What happens when they're just actively encouraging more and more women to opt into this mail order bride system? We tell you, and I'll talk about this more later, but this just completely exacerbates a very bad narrative for the feminist movement, because the women who opt into this, right, they're usually young and attractive, but they might be poor in bad financial situations. They're not self-sufficient. They already told you from the characteristics from the start. So if more women opt into this, it just shows society oh, these women are not able to get jobs themselves. They have to rely on richer men. What kind of narrative does this actually give to society, right? This kind of narrative can be used as leverage against advancing more feminist movements or feminist goals equal gender pay, better job opportunities, so education opportunities for these people in these developing countries that are already oppressive towards these feminist people, toward women in general. I'll take it for that.
So for a third world country woman who is suffering from basic healthcare and education, do you think it's more important for her to push for feminism or to actually get a shelter and get help from these people?
Okay, I don't understand. Okay, I'm just gonna go into why you actually don't get help. Able to give them a safer life. So we already tell you our alternative is going to be giving them migrant worker opportunities, right? Also, I don't think all developing countries are as unsafe as bad, even though that is true for some of them. But okay, we already told you a lot of examples of how when they opt into these relationships, there's power imbalance. They're going into a foreign country with variant barriers, maybe racism or whatever against these people. There's a lot of reasons why it's going to be unsafe for them. They can't opt out, whatever. We already told you a lot of those things on how it's going to be unsafe. Okay, so yeah, kind of things legal, but why is that not like good enough? It's because of the narrative that it proliferates in society. Okay, and then the second argument they give you essentially, women are going to start to like change more unsafe for alternatives. Maybe they're going to become sex workers or whatever. Like at least it's good to have a legal system in place for them to do this safely. Okay, I don't understand why like all of these bad things happening is the reason why we just should keep this extremely harmful like industry, right? Like if human trafficking exists or whatever, it should be tackled by like police or like international systems trying to track these things down. It's like a separate issue on trying to crack down on these cases, right? And also we already have alternative for migrant worker agencies. We're encouraging them to actually get jobs in other countries. And also, they give us a lot of information on what like the worker thing isn't going to work. Here is why it's going to work. We already tell you there's already a really big demand for cheaper labor in a lot of other countries, right? And also, like, yeah, there's a lot, and also like when it comes to education, there's a lot of foreign worker jobs that actually don't require like a lot of high education. For instance, if you want to be a caretaker for an old or senior or whatever, you don't really require any like educational degree to do this. Or if you want to be a factory worker that puts together like semiconductor pieces or whatever, you also don't really need an education to work a midnight shift or something like that. Yeah, I think that women on our side are definitely still able to get jobs, and by actually actively promoting this, we're gonna help them get a job and like things like that. Okay. So yeah, so they tell you they're gonna save them. So basically, I'm just gonna go into our impacts and why we win. Here are a couple of metrics on why we win. The first one is magnitude. We win on magnitude. Why is this? Because on their side, these male owner brides, okay, they might get better lives on a surface level, right? I'm just gonna be very charitable here. Take them at their best case. What is the best case for these women? They go to these other countries. They get really rich, like a partner who gives them a ton of money. They live in a really good house, a really good neighborhood, in a safer society, better for women in the first place. Why is it still bad? Because it's still defeated by our principle. Look, just imagine the long term, right? What happens when you just proliferate this entire industry? Just continuing to encourage the commodification of women, right? They proliferate these really bad feminist narratives. They make these women look like they can't be self-sufficient in society, and we tell you that this is then never going to help change anything in the developing society world. It's not going to help women to actually be able to live in their own country for once. It's not going to help them to be able to advance the important feminist goals that they need to change the country. Like, we don't want long term to just be every single woman opts into these male order red transactional relationships, right? Obviously, the good long-term end goal is for these women to be able to work in their country, to survive with like equal rights in their own country, and to be able to live a good life by themselves and be self-sufficient and not have to opt into this kind of industry. Right. Also, we went on the long term. This kind of goes into what I was just talking about. So we're able to help more women because on our side, we're not going to be proliferating this harmful narrative. So we won't be like blocking. We have more hope for like advancing feminist goals. And so on the long term, this is better because we're able to get more like fulfilling relationships and like as well. Right? If we're changing from a mail order bride situation to like we want them to be migrant workers, what does this mean? It means that these women are more likely to try and get education, or at least they're going to be getting a job. If they get a job and they're able to start to work and contribute to the economy, then it can be used as leverage against them when they're trying to advance like gender pay gaps or like job opportunities, because they're actually still contributing to the economy. They're able to be self-sufficient. They can use this to go against any men who are using this leverage against them. Also, we went on likelihood. Why? Because it's more likely for this relationship to go sour, and there's no way for these women to opt out. We already tell you, the men who opt into this, the men who can't use Tinder normally or whatever, they're probably middle-aged, they're poor, they might be really busy in life. No matter what it is, they're not able to give these women an actual good, fulfilling relationship that you would want for like a normal person, right? Like a normal relationship is obviously never going to happen on their side. It's just transactional in the first place. Women are probably constantly going to be evaluated on how much they're able to satisfy the men instead of like just being a partner in general and just being a human being, right? And also, women they can't get good deals. Like they want to like leverage better negotiations because where is the leverage in the first place, right? And also, we went on reversibility because finally, on our side, women are not able to opt out of these mail order bride marriages, even if they go sour. But if they use our alternative and they go into the foreign worker industry, at least they have other alternatives. At least they're able to just advance their lives in other ways. So for all these reasons, I'm so proud to promote. Thank you.
Proposition's whole case is based on the idea that since allowing this mail order by is going to hinder this feminist movement, we should end this whole illegal trade. Very So I think starting off, I have to make a clarification that we do compromise that there are of course a lot of problems with all these mail order and we're trying as much as possible, and we're trying to help the most vulnerable stakeholders in this movement. So starting off, they tell us that these women themselves should be going for these should be going for all these migrant workers and not going to these works that sell their body economy. But our POI asked them that does this feminist movement really matter to them that much, or do these like the next meal or shelter matter to them more? And then moving on, they tell us that all these actions are going to like hinder feminist movement. I say that this harm also exists on their side. Why is that true? Imagine what migrant workers look like. They're often a job that require less education. It's often a job that in the lowest level of society. What do these look like? It looks like in all these developed countries, we have the idea that these poor women that come from the Philippines come to our countries and then tell us today they work for me, and we only have all this cheap labor. We think that these migrant workers themselves actually also poses a also hinders feminist movement, and in fact, it's also bringing down migrants from the developing country. We said that this harm actually exists on both sides. If we really have to argue on this, and then moving on to the two clashes, I think first of all, who brings better lives for women? So what does the government tell us? They point out our problems, which is that these women are going to be emotionally unfulfilled. I'll take it later. First of all, they talk about love. They say that these women opting into all these marriages are not going to gain love, are not going to have a normal normal relationship. But we said that when they go into these mail order buy, they already know that. You know you're going to marry to a rich man. You know it's going to be the voting of your whole life, but you still choose to do it. Why is that? Because they need the money. We think that they're throughout the whole debate, they're ignoring the fact that these women might have an emergency for this money. They're just assuming that they still don't want to sacrifice any of their rights, but they still want to gain all these money on the one hand. So we think that's actually very unlikely to happen. Second of all, they told us about all these cultural barriers. Well, I tell you, cultural barrier also happens on their side. What do migrant workers face? They face assimilation. They face all these problems with language and all these problems with religion. This is a situation also happening for migrant workers. Yes, I accept your POI.
So we tell you the difference is that we're sending women on their own, completely independent of foreign countries. So we tell you that the difference is that you're literally sending women completely on their own without any support because they're just going into a relationship that is not another person without any other community.
Okay, so what we tell right now is that our first speaker has set up a model that these agencies they will going to supervise these people. Why is that true? Because these agencies are going to earn from this trading between rich people and poor. They're going to earn from this, and with them having to earn from this, they're also profit driven. So they wanted to continue this trading. So since they want to continue this trading, it means that they wanted to keep it. They want government to allow them to survive. So they wanted to be on a legal side. So that's why they're going to make sure that these women are not being abusive, or else the government are going to say this is against human rights. You cannot do this, and then these agencies will lose their job. They don't want this to happen. That's why they wanted to supervise on these situations so that they can also gain profit on their side. And I'm going to move on to the second thing they talked about, which is family pressure. I think family pressure also exists on their side. Why is that? There are also girls who are pushed out by their family because their family is so poor. They tell you, your brother is farming, so you have to go to another country to be a maid or something like that. We think that family pressure and selling off daughters also exists in the situation of migrant workers. And then what is the problem inherently with the migrant workers? We said that this market itself is limited. Why is that? There are already so many women within all these developing countries. We said that even they say that there are going to still be enough people, enough jobs. We said that eventually the market would be unlimited, and even if there's still a job, the salary is going to be low. Why is that? Because the supply is high. That means that salary is going to be low. I think that's a very basic economic idea. So with that being said, they're not going to earn the money that they want, which is comparative on our side. We provide this lucrative job that they gain on our side. And then moving on, concluding that why these women that are low educated and so not talented as they stated, why are they going to be competitive with these migrant workers with the local these local people? How are they going to be even competitive to win through these people? And then moving on, We see that actually the selling of women and poor women to like rich men exists on both sides. It's just that on our side, we're able to have a legal model to like regulate it, to supervise it, but on their side, it's still going to happen. Rich men anyways are going to want these moments, so they're still going to buy these moments. And this is going to happen on their side illegally, which means that these women might not even gain their money. They might just be kidnapped any day, and then they're going to like lose their connection with their family. And we think that this net harm itself with their migrant worker model is already harmful enough for us to win this debate. And then moving on to what our side tell you. Our side tell you that this is legal. We give you a whole model about how this is going to be regulated before they're sent there and then after they're sent there. And then we tell that the government will want to regulate it because they know that these things they don't want to have all these accidents within their countries. So they wanted to like keep them under their eyes so that they can know what is happening right now to make sure that at least the harm is like mitigated to the least. Sorry. So we said that it's going to be just like it's just going to be regulated, just as how migrant workers are coming to the nations. We think it's just like the same idea, the same model that can be put on both sides. So our second speaker will also tell you that what does their world also look like. It means that if these women only have some choices, only have like 3 choices. First of all, they go into this migrant worker model they have. And then second of all, they cannot actually be a migrant worker, maybe because they cannot leave their family, they're just not educated, they don't have a skill. So they conducted all these sex careers, industries within their nation, within a local community. We said that this is going to happen because not all women can be migrant workers. And then the last one, they might be able to go into these normal workforce, right? There's still women other countries that are pretty smart. They're able to like gain a strength for themselves. But what do they face? They face situations such as that these men are going to look down at them. They're going to face all these sexual harassment in all these workforce. So we say that eventually, this women on their side are still going to face these situations. Very proud to upload.
Thanks. I'd like to welcome opposition sides to wrap up opposition sides, please, right here.
My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. I think a big portion of this debate of the proposition side had been dedicated to their model of migrant worker agency. But we have to out here list out all the problems that they have. One, because there's more migrant workers than there are of male right orders. That means they will have less income. Also, because they require different skills, they're most likely less competitive than those who are properly educated to be housemaids or who are properly educated to be factory workers, right? And also, since they are stressing feminism so much, we have to understand that this restriction of them from having this male order bride is also in opposition towards feminism. Why is that? Because it provides no choice for women. Who are we to dictate that because they are? Who are we to dictate that the women in third world country cannot make voluntary and well-informed decisions? Who are we to dictate such a thing? Well, on the note of opposing feminism, we can also look at some of their points. For example, they say nothing is more important for women than love. Or when they say the counterfactual is better because we prevent women from these coercive relationships. How dare they assume that these women are so uneducated that they can't understand if the man their parent gets is actually coercive, actually abusive or not? Who are we to cut off a potential pathway for them just because we think they don't know how to make a good decision, right? So our model instead went completely uncontested by them. We have provided widest provided incentives for the man, for the woman, for the government, and for the agencies themselves, right? But since the second speaker think he thinks that it was still not going to work, and it was still allow coercive parents to put in all these influence, even if we make sure that it is well consented and well informed. I guess maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. And onto that, all of their claims are countered by our models. For example, they say that they are going to be coerced by parents, but we say that on our model, we will allow them to be well informed, allow them to make sure that it's a volunteer decision. And they also say that men are in power and there will be no way of people to revolt again, of the women to revolt against the man if they find out that the relationship is actually very sour. But we say, we've already stated in our claim that the organization are still going to monitor the relationship between the man and the woman, which means we will always provide a way for them to help, even if the worst case scenario, they do find themselves in an abusive relationship. They also say that no one would try to help them because no one cares about these secondary citizens. No one cares about them because they already subjugated themselves to this low dignity work of a mail-ordered bride. But we say that because we allow these organizations to maintain control and maintain surveillance over these relationships, this would happen in an infinitesimal probability. Therefore, we have to understand that on our side, we allow free choice for the woman. We provide a channel for them to make well-informed and voluntary decisions. We ensure that they have a protection to the full extent, while allowing them to open a pathway for them to seek for a better future. We say we want to flip the argument on their side about feminism, that we allow the best women to make the best and the widest array of choices that they have. Very proud to close our case.
Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Dr. Klein to close today's meeting.
So let's speech in 3, 2, 1. All wants women to enter a house filled with spikes to shelter themselves from the rain. A few things. First of all, I think we have already just proven to you why agencies are really bad actors. Both Nita and I have already literally told you that they are that they already have profit incentives and are very likely to just like hush up these abuse cases so that their reputation doesn't get tarnished. I think they are already really bad actors, so I don't think any regulation will happen, or just simply just not to the extent in which they can actually just like regulate it to an extent in which these women can be sufficiently protected. Second, I think parents see I think just parents see migrant workers as just like a major choice, right? If mail order rights don't exist. So I think what this will do is that just society in general will see this as a really good choice, and they're likely to improve education for these women in these countries so that this actually happens. So I think the entire model just doesn't work, because we already told you that men are quite literally bad actors, right? We already told you that. And I think this characterization just remains super unengaged with, which is that we already told you that these men can very, very easily just go on Tinder, can go on like just dates in general, or like dating apps, but they purposely choose to have to use mail order rights. So it is very obvious that they either have problems or just various incentives. It's very simple, right? And I just don't think that they engage with this at all. So I think this is literally just typical, right? And is that they say, there'll be also like regulation and like interview the men. Men lie, right? I think every single one of us in this knows men lie. They're just like 直男, right? So I think it's just super obvious that these men are just manipulated into being into just like appearing as good, even though they probably aren't. I think this is just like the most intuitive claim response to their argument, right? Because I just don't think that this like huge like background checks will actually work. Because I think it just like to me saying that I've already told you that the government just does not care about these people because they aren't their citizens. I think this just completely remains unambiguous on the side. Yeah. So let's look at our arguments. What do we win? First of all, we prove to you that this fosters self-sufficiency, and this is better for feminism infinitely more than whatever they claim about like, women have the choice. I just don't think so. I think this is a bad choice, right? Because I think because if you look at it, and it seems like women are like really, really dependent on like a rich man. I think this just completely crushes the feminist narrative, right? I think the feminist narrative is that women can be self-sufficient, women can work on their own, women don't have to rely on a man. I think that is the feminist narrative that we should be pushing. I have literally no idea what you're talking about, right? So second, we prove autonomy. Why women get more autonomy on our side. 3, we prove why women are a lot safer. We already told you that there are established migrant communities which people actually care about. Second is that in this in like no order right works, what happens is that there is really any regulation and there is lots of just like a really large power imbalance. Before we told you that this just literally remains just like unresponded to by opposition. Fourth, we prove to you that we get more fulfillment on our side. They only prove that it's somehow good for women, even though we already told you that it's not good for like the feminist movement, and this entire thing is contingent on like their own characterization, which we have already taken on multiple times. And students like migrant workers don't work. I don't think this happens, right? Because we've already said women on our side play chess, while women on your side are forced to play checkers. Parts to oppose.
Okay, please come to the floor, shake hands.